Look, Ma, no hands. Alright, so the way this works is I have a friction wheel on a 1/4-inch shaft, and this is the motor I got for the white rotary sewing machine you've seen in one of my previous videos. It is a 1.5 amp motor. I'll have a link for it below. It's a little underpowered for this machine if you do a lot of sewing. Let's disconnect that. And I have this held in with a long clamp. This is a 30-inch clamp. You'd probably be good with a 10-inch clamp. I just don't happen to have one. All my other clamps are too short. So unhook that, and the motor simply comes off like that. The motor simply has holes here for the motor mount. So that's pretty simple. This oak is screwed into here. And then the reason you want the clamp is because this doesn't meet up all the way. See that? There's space right there. There's about 1/8 of an inch, and the reason is when you put that clamp on, it pushes that against the wheel, causing pressure and extra friction. See, if you just lay that right there and you spin it, it's not enough to do anything. But when you have the force of the clamp pulling it together, it starts turning it. Alright, so as you can see, it will sew this oil tanned leather. Does a good strong stitch. Both front and back stitches are very good. So let's go ahead and see what it can do to this. So when you're starting this, always manually crank it down. well, we popped a stitch there. What we did is we went down and picked up the slack stitch from the beginning, and then that threaded through and snapped it, but you can see it sewed very well on the top. Let's take a look at the back. Hey, the back looks great. You know, this machine, the back stitch is always going to look great, or I should say the bottom stitch is always going to look great as long as you have your tension right. The wallet I made in my last video, a few of you pointed out, the stitching loops on the back were pulled through. You're absolutely right, because when I was filming that, I did not realize I had not tensioned my machine properly. I only had one of the loops. One of the tensioners here, I did not have the second one. In the end, I think it did better with the veg tan leather than it did with the oil tan leather. Alright, so there you go. We got our 1.5 amp sewing machine motor on here with our Kenmore friction wheel on here for Kenmore's white rotaries, and then right over here we have our electrical tape to help get that friction wheel, give it some friction. So if I was going to use this a lot more instead of using my little motor back here, because this is getting a little warm, I have been doing a lot of sewing with it, but what I would go ahead and do is get a servo motor for an industrial sewing machine, because I have a link below, and then I would figure out a way to mount that. I, of course, am not doing that. I don't use this machine enough to justify doing that, but hey, maybe you do a lot of leather work day in, day out. So if a heavier duty motor is what you think you'll need and you can rig it up and figure out how to do it, I'd love to see it. Leave a comment below. Tell me how you've rigged up yours. Show a picture if you got one. And I'll have another video up soon. Until then.